Tonight, with out-of-control inflation, the major move by the Federal Reserve, the Fed raising interest rates by 0.75 percentage point, its largest hike in nearly 30 years. Americans now faced with higher borrowing costs as they struggle to pay for everyday items like groceries and gas. Tonight, some of the families forced into desperation, including the mother out of a job, now putting her own family up for hire. So will this rate hike actually bring relief, and when? Also, the new images just coming in, a tornado touching down near the Wisconsin-Iowa border just moments ago. Residents there urged to take cover. 36 million people from the Midwest to the Northeast now at risk for severe storms. Yellowstone cut off. New video showing rocks falling onto cars in Yellowstone National Park. Widespread flooding and rock slides now shutting all entrances to the park. Thousands of visitors forced to evacuate. Officials now saying it could be months before the famed park fully reopens. Also breaking tonight, Dr. Fauci tests positive for COVID-19. The 81-year-old fully vaxxed and double boosted, and it's his first known positive since the pandemic began. It comes as the U.S. records more than 100,000 new COVID cases a day. But tonight, defense for children under 5 after the FDA greenlit vaccines for that age group. Plus, the surveillance video showing the moment an inmate began choking a deputy at an Oklahoma jail. The surprise rescuers who answered the guard's call for help. And hacking your car? The new device found in Miami that would allow thieves to clone your key fob and start your car. Top story starts right now. And good evening. Is help on the way? The country facing runaway inflation and the Federal Reserve trying to wrangle it in. The Fed raising its key short-term interest rates by 0.75 percentage point, the largest since 1994. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell also leaving the door open for another rate increase that same size, saying one is likely next month. The move hoping to help cool off inflation spikes, but it will push up rates for credit cards, mortgages, and other loans. U.S. stock markets rallying after the news, with all three major U.S. indices ending in the green today. But American families are the ones feeling the pinch. Food price increasing, hitting 40-year highs, the average cost of a gallon of regular gas topping $5 today. And families are growing more desperate. One mother who can't risk her gas tank running out before her next paycheck. Another mother allowing her children to do small tasks for neighbors in exchange for extra cash. We'll have their stories in just a few minutes, but we begin tonight with Tom Costello for more on what today's rate hike means for you.
For days, the Fed has telegraphed that it would go big today after acknowledging it should have acted sooner to rein in inflation. Today's 0.75 point rate hike is on top of two smaller hikes earlier this year.
We at the Fed understand the hardship that high inflation is causing. We're strongly committed to bringing inflation back down.
By raising rates and the cost of borrowing from mortgages and car loans to big business loans, the Fed hopes to cool the economy without pushing it into recession. Inflation now running at 8.6%, the highest since 1981, and Americans are getting squeezed. To make ends meet, Louisiana special ed teacher and single mom Christina Seal is now selling her plasma to earn an extra $600 a month.
It's something that I have to do in order to keep my family afloat, in order to make sure that there is enough food to go around and the lights are on and I've got gas in my gas tank.
Christina says her monthly bills have nearly doubled. A tank of gas from $40 to $90 a week. Utility bills from $180 to $300. Groceries from $150 to $300 a week. Now she's turning to a local food bank for help.
Things just kept going up. Inflation kept going up and up until my credit card was eventually maxed out.
Cereal, peanut butter.
At the Loaves and Fishes food pantry in Los Angeles, Brenda Hakimian says she no longer feels a part of the middle class.
There's either extreme rich or extreme poor, and the rest of us just kind of fall through the cracks.
Meanwhile, with nearly every American watching more of their paychecks sucked into their gas tank, the national average now $5.01 a gallon, President Biden today accused U.S. oil companies of profiting off the pain at the pump, with oil refining capacity down 3 million barrels a day since 2020. In a letter to 7 oil CEOs, Mr. Biden writes, at a time of war, refinery profit margins well above normal being passed directly onto American families are not acceptable. But the oil industry believes the Biden White House has been hostile as it tries to go green. 6 refineries have gone offline, many in need of overhaul to meet environmental standards. The oil industry says U.S. refineries today are running at or near capacity to meet demand, but still demand is outpacing supply.
All right, Tom Costello joins us now from outside the Federal Reserve there in Washington. And Tom, you know, when the Fed was making its comments today, Chairman Powell, he mentioned that there are a lot of factors why inflation is out of control. And we keep going back to the supply chain crisis, which it feels like we've been talking about for almost a year now.
Still a factor. In fact, China still has cities in lockdown. COVID still a problem there. So, yes, the supply chain issue still real, still at the source. It's a problem. On top of that, the Fed is watching the war in Ukraine. That's been driving prices higher for fuel and food. And then we've got the demand in the United States, which has really been unexpectedly strong. The Fed is saying they will probably raise rates again in July by another half point, maybe another 3/4 point hike, then again in the fall, then again in December. This is not done, and they're expecting unemployment will start to rise from these historically very low levels right now. Will start to rise probably all the way through 2024, Tom.
Tom Costello following it all for us tonight. Tom, we thank you for that. For more on the Fed's rate hike and what it means for your money, I want to bring in CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman. Steve, if the rate hike actually does help flatten inflation, as Powell says it will, when will Americans feel that relief? Or maybe the question is, how soon will we know if what the Fed is doing is working?
Yeah, so 2 separate questions, and I think the best way to answer it is to say first, there's a couple different sources of inflation. I think that you had the monetary stimulus and the fiscal stimulus that were out there from the pandemic. I think that's one source. You have another source that comes from things that are outside the Fed's control. For example, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which has created commodity price spikes and things like energy and grain. I don't think the Fed is going to have much control of that at all. You also have a third element, which are supply shocks. So some of those things are going to work out by themselves. They have absolutely nothing to do with what the Fed is doing. On the other hand, what the Fed is doing is trying to restrain demand to get inflation down. And you'll start to see that, I think, relatively quickly. The Fed started talking about raising interest rates about 6 months ago in November of last year. And ever since then, what we call financial conditions, that is interest rates as well as the level of the stock market, they've tightened. They've made it harder to do certain things out there. So we should be seeing some effect of this in the next several months and at least some easing of inflation, though perhaps it's going to be a longer slog getting it back down to where the Fed wants it to be, which is 2%. Remember, it's running between 8 and 9% now.
So, Steve, you bring up a great point because my next question is about what the Fed has been doing. You mentioned November. I'm not an economist, but they've done some pretty quick U-turns recently, right? We eased into this sort of inflation, this rate hike, and then over the last several weeks, we've moved very fast. What confidence do you have that the Fed knows what they're doing this time?
You know, I think the Fed is groping in the dark a bit, and I think that there are a variety of reasons for it. On the one hand, it missed the signals of higher inflation being not transitory but more permanent. And we don't know that it's done an overhaul of how it's looking at these things. So I think there's a reason not to be confident in their forecasting ability. On the other hand, the decision today to raise by 0.75 percentage point, which they had not done since 1994, is a very bold statement. The Fed doesn't do something it hasn't done in 30 years without trying to make a statement. And that's what it did today. And that statement was, we are very serious about fighting inflation, and we're going to do what needs to be done to bring down inflation, even if that means softening the economy more and perhaps even risking a recession.
Steve, you did mention history here when it comes to rate hikes. We're putting a graph up right now. This is the interest rates going back to 1955. The rate has been historically low since the start of the pandemic. How high do you think we'll see rates go this year and into early next year? Because when we look at that graph, we see some very high peaks.
Great question. Just to be clear, we're talking about the Fed funds rate. This is one interest rate that the Federal Reserve controls. It's the rate that banks use to lend to each other overnight. It is not the rate you pay on your credit card. It is not the rate you're paying on your mortgage. Most of those rates are going to be higher, in some cases substantially higher. So I think the story here is that by the end of this year, the Fed funds rate, which is now in this range between 1.5 and 1 3/4, should be closer to 3.5. By next year, sometime in the summer, sometime in the spring, it could be as high as 4%, a place it has not been in many years as well. What does that mean for average people? That means, for example, your mortgage rates right now are trading in the 6% or being offered right now in the 6% range. It means your credit cards will go up, your auto loans will go up as well. Just to be clear, it means as well that they're going to be more normal than they had been. Remember, we live in a world of very, very low interest rates, and now we're going to be living in a more normal world of interest rates.
CNBC's Steve Leisman, we really thank you for joining us tonight, Steve. That skyrocketing inflation hitting families all across the country particularly hard. Parents forced to make some very difficult decisions, some scaling back on summer travel, others unable to pay their bills. One Texas mother bringing her kids to work alongside her. NBC's Ann Thompson has their stories.
In a troubling sign of the times, families crushed under the weight of soaring inflation are doing whatever they can to get by.
I have a gas water heater and my gas has tripled.
Single mom Lisa Jackie saw the bills starting to pile up after losing her job earlier this year. So she turned to her community in Plano, Texas, with an unusual offer: Family for Hire, the title of her post on the forum next door.
My youngest loves to garden. If somebody needs a garden planted, the cost of something like that, organizing a garage.
The mother of 4 offering to do small tasks for her neighbors with the help of her 3 teens and 11-year-old daughter.
Are the kids okay with this?
Yeah, the kids are. They're like, okay, Mom. They're always up for some crazy things that Mom is suggesting.
Dallas mom Julie Turner says record high gas prices have forced her family to stay on a strict budget.
And honestly, if we run out and we don't have any more gas money, we don't go places.
And for good reason. Gas prices up 50% over the last year. The cost of food, apparel, cars, and home energy skyrocketing too, forcing families like the Lanes in Cincinnati to make impossible decisions.
Utilities, cell phone, cable, food, it's gone up triple. So we're deducting from other bills just to keep everybody fed.
Dad Greg battling cancer for the second time in 4 years, unable to work.
It's not their responsibility to worry about the bills, the cancer, anything bad. I want them to be happy.
The Lane's landlord deciding to sell their home in a seller-friendly market, leaving the family of 4 with nowhere to go. Still, their message to others in a similar situation is one of hope.
Hang on, because this is a time and this is a season. We will get through it.
Families struggling to make ends meet, but determined to get through it together. Ann Thompson, NBC News.
All right, we thank Ann for that, and we feel for all those families out there. We're also following some other breaking news tonight. We're learning of a reported tornado strike near the Wisconsin-Iowa border. New video just coming in. Take a look at the size of this. It shows a large tornado in Oakdale, Wisconsin. There are some reports of damage in both states. Millions on alert tonight for severe storms across the upper Midwest. I want to get right to meteorologist Bill Cairns with the late-breaking tornado. And, Bill, that looked pretty big on camera.
It is, and that's the problem with tornadoes. You just don't know. You get a big one that hits a town, it's a huge problem. You get a big one like this one, and as of now, it looks like it was mostly over rural areas. We know it had some tree debris in it and stuff like that, but it didn't go through any towns. So we're okay when we get big, huge ones like that are out wide in the open. And the tornado threat continues all the way through tonight, even after midnight. We have a new tornado watch for northern Michigan until 1 a.m., so that's when people are asleep, and that gets a little dangerous after dark, too. The tornado watch that includes Milwaukee, Sheboygan, Green Bay, and Madison. This one is going to go till 10 p.m. your local time. Right now, the worst of the storms are approaching Madison, Wisconsin, and eventually they'll work up their way towards Green Bay in about an hour or two. We do have a couple tornado warnings out there currently. We've had 2 confirmed tornadoes today so far. Obviously, we have the potential for a couple more. Here's Madison, so you're in the clear right now, but we'll watch these storms developing off to your west. Of course, the University of Wisconsin located there in Madison. And then tomorrow, we'll continue with the severe weather threat. Wind damage, isolated tornadoes are going to be heading into areas from Ohio good chunk of Pennsylvania and western New York, between Buffalo, Rochester, Binghamton area to Syracuse, and all of central PA. That's already an enhanced risk of severe storms and isolated strong storms also, Tom, from Kansas City to St. Louis. So a very busy evening.
Bill, we've been talking the last 2 weeks about the heat dome and the triple-digit heat. How bad is it out there still?
Yeah, and just not to ruin it, but next week we'll be talking about the same thing again, because this heat wave is just, it's going to be relentless. It continues tonight into tomorrow and well into the weekend. We still have 104 million Americans under heat advisories or warnings. That's still 1 out of every 3 of us. And where the worst of it is still in the Ohio Valley. It was brutal today in areas of Georgia and into South Carolina. And tomorrow we're going to watch that heat continuing in this area because the heat dome is just sitting right over the top of Tennessee and Kentucky. And as far as the heat index will go for tomorrow, we should be at 105 in St. Louis, 102 in Lexington, Raleigh 102, and look at Tallahassee, Florida. Could feel like 110 tomorrow afternoon. I was looking at the forecast for Nashville, Tom, and next week looks even hotter.
Even hotter, 110 in Tallahassee. Wow, that feels like that's wild. Okay, Bill, we thank you for that. Next night, we go back to Yellowstone National Park, closed until further notice after major flooding destroyed homes there. And now we have new headlines. Officials saying it could be months until the nation's most visited natural wonder is reopened to the public. This is the governor of Montana declares a state of emergency. NBC's Miguel Almaguer is there with more.
Whoa. This was the harrowing escape out of Yellowstone as boulders tumble down mountains and a home washed into a river floating nearly 5 miles downstream.
We had no warning. They're just like, get in, get in, get in.
For Nicole O'Shea and nearly 100 other people cut off by dangerous, fast-rising floodwaters, these helicopter rides were their only chance for rescue.
It landed, and it was, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. It was so emotional because none of us were expecting it.
Across large swaths of Montana, historic flooding washed away roads and submerged them under feet of water.
Water started rolling in the back, broke out a basement window, started filling up my basement, and then I quit.
Holy! Even bridges with their mangled trestles floated downstream, ripped apart by raging currents.
It was frightening because in addition to all of this debris you can hear the rocks in the creek. These are giant boulders.
A state of emergency as roads into Yellowstone National Park remain closed indefinitely at the start of the peak summer season.
It's safe to say that it's going to be an extended period of time. The northern end will be closed.
With 10,000 people evacuated from the nation's oldest national park, this is the first time flooding has ever closed it.
And in the afternoon, it started rising even more, and we had to move everything to high ground.
The deluge fueled by an atmospheric river or stream of moisture, pounding the region with inches of rain.
And it wasn't just rain, but snowmelt that filled these rivers. One of them rising 6 feet in just 24 hours. So much water, it toppled into nearby communities below. The water just now beginning to recede.
Tonight, historic flooding and unprecedented damage at one of our nation's most stunning national parks. Mother Nature's beauty now suffering from its wrath.
All right, Miguel joins us now from outside Yellowstone National Park. And Miguel, just looking at your live shot there, a reminder of why so many Americans want to visit this park every single year. And though that shot behind you may be a little deceiving because it is so beautiful, majestic, right now what's happening there is dangerous. What more do we know about the closures and how they could impact travelers and businesses this summer?
Well, Tom, right now the park is closed indefinitely. We're told it could be a couple of weeks, perhaps even months until the roads into the park reopen. That would be disastrous for the summer travel season here. For all of those families that come up here, the businesses here also depend on large summer crowds. They would suffer dramatically as well. We're not yet sure on when this park could reopen. Everyone, though, with their eyes on that date. Tom.
All right, Miguel Almaguer for us. Miguel, we appreciate that. Another breaking story we're following tonight. The nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, announced he has COVID for the first time in this pandemic. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases says he's fully vaccinated and received 2 booster shots and is now experiencing mild symptoms. NBC News senior medical contributor Dr. John Torres joins us now. Dr. Torres, I don't know if this is a turning point in this pandemic, but I definitely think it's a marker we shouldn't forget. I don't know anybody in this country who probably takes as much precaution as Dr. Fauci, right? He's led us through this pandemic. We mentioned 2 shots, 2 boosters, and yet now he gets sick. What can we draw from this, Dr. John?
And Tom, I think you're exactly right on that. He's probably more cautious than most of us. Even the most cautious of us, he's probably at least equally cautious of that and has canceled events because he's worried about the COVID exposure at the events. But what this is showing us is a few things. Number one, he's human. He can get these viruses like the rest of us. Number two, he took the most precautions he could take. He has the vaccines, he has the boosters, he was masking up just about everywhere he went. And so he took those, which shows you just how contagious this virus is. But number three, he's only showing mild symptoms. And that's because, number one, he's 81, and so he is at a higher risk of having complications, but he has the shots, he has the boosters, he's on Paxlovid as well, and so he's taking all the protections and precautions he can right now, and hopefully he recovers without any issues here in the next few days, but we'll certainly watch and see what happens with that.
Do you think from a public health perspective there might be a danger here? Do you think people who are on the fence on vaccines or are on the fence about boosters may say, listen, at this point, if Dr. Fauci got sick, we're all going to get sick eventually or get sick again?
And I think the message here is that the vaccines do not necessarily protect you from getting sick like we're seeing here, but they protect you from serious complications. They protect you from hospitalizations and from dying from COVID, which is at the end of the day what we want the vaccines to do and what they were made to do. And so hopefully that message gets out, and hopefully Dr. Fauci starts talking a little bit more about that, how he's protected because of the vaccines. And even though he got it, which we know can break through the vaccines, he's protected from those other things and particularly protected from dying because of it.
It is a great reminder about that point. Dr. Torres, I also want to ask you, an FDA panel has finally endorsed both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines for kids under the age of 5. This has been a long time coming. A lot of parents have been hesitant to get their kids vaccinated, even the older ones. What do you think is going to happen next year?
What I think is going to happen next is what we've seen happen in the past with the vaccines. The advisory panel says, let's go ahead and recommend for the emergency use authorization. The FDA commissioner will take a look at it, and by all indications, he's going to go ahead and sign off on it. And then the advisory panel for the CDC will meet Friday and Saturday. And moving forward, if they give the okay and saying, here's how they should get it, when they should get it, and where they should get it, then the FDA, Dr. Rochelle, head of the FDA, the CDC will sign off on that over the weekend more than likely. And so we're talking Monday or Tuesday timeframe when these children this age, which is the one group that's still been lacking the vaccine and that ultimate protection, could hopefully be getting shots in arms.
All right, Dr. John, we thank you for that. All right, next we head to Capitol Hill. The January 6th committee asking Republican Congressman Barry Loudermilk for information regarding a tour he gave the day before the attack on the Capitol. The committee releasing new video showing what they say is a man who was on that tour, also in front of the Capitol, marching the next day on January 6th. Senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake has the latest from D.C. So, Garrett, the committee released this new video. Can you explain what the committee believes the new video actually shows and what questions they have for Loudermilk?
Yeah, Tom, the committee has wanted to talk to Loudermilk for a while, and now we know why, having seen this video. It shows this tour from January 5th, a time in which the Capitol was closed because of COVID. And you see this tour going various places, and the same man taking pictures on his phone camera in some of these House office buildings and the tunnels beneath the Capitol, but not of the kind of things tourists are normally paying attention to. He's seen taking pictures of stairwells and security checkpoints, some stuff that to the average viewer might look suspicious, although Capitol Police said it is not so. Then in this same video clip, the committee says we see video of this same man walking around shooting video on his cell phone on the 6th, talking about coming into the Capitol and hunting down Speaker Pelosi. He makes pretty explicit threats against Speaker Pelosi. So the committee wants to know what Loudermilk knew about any of this, whether he knew who this individual was, and whether he realized he was giving a tour to someone who might be coming back the very next day with violence on his mind.
So Garrett, what is Representative Loudermilk saying right now? And has any law enforcement agency, including the Capitol Police, which you just mentioned there, has anyone connected the dots here?
Loudermilk says he didn't know this person. He was giving a tour to constituents. He knew some of them, but not this person. He says he condemns the language that the man uses in the video. But beyond that, he says, look, I was just showing this guy around. We didn't go into the Capitol, and he thinks the things that this man was taking pictures of were a little more innocent than that. Capitol Police have so far largely agreed. They've reviewed the tape. They don't find it to be particularly suspicious. Bottom line, committee wants to talk to him, sit him down under oath, and get to the bottom of exactly what what was going on here.
All right, Garrett Haig for us from Capitol Hill. Garrett, we appreciate that. Now to South Carolina and the split decision from voters on the influence of President Trump over the Republican Party. One congressman who voted for impeachment losing his primary, while another Trump critic won hers. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is in South Carolina with the very latest.
Fallout tonight from Donald Trump's revenge tour, the ousting of a Republican congressman in South Carolina.
Tom Rice joined the Democrats' deranged impeachment witch hunt hoax.
Tom Rice, one of 10 Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump after the January 6th insurrection, and never wavering from his vote to his very last day on the campaign trail.
The truth will set you free. And I think that Donald Trump is not the future of the Republican Party.
But that position costing him. Trump's endorsed candidate handily defeating Rice.
Today, Donald Trump won.
In a different South Carolina district, however, Trump tried to purge Republican Nancy Mace, but failed. Notably, unlike Rice, she stopped criticizing Trump.
What is your message to Donald Trump now?
My message is the same to him as it is to anybody else on either side of the aisle. I am more willing to work with anyone who's willing to work with me.
Out west, Trump had a winning night in Nevada with his picks for governor and the U.S. Senate.
I would like to thank President Donald Trump for not only believing in me, but for believing in Nevada.
But also for Secretary of State Jim Marchant, a 2020 election conspiracy theorist. He would oversee Nevada's next presidential election, yet he says he would not have certified its 2020 results, when Trump lost the state by more than 33,000 votes. Down in Texas, the GOP making inroads with Latino voters. Republican Mayra Flores pulling off an upset in a heavily Hispanic district that Biden won by 13 percentage points less than 2 years ago.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard joins us now live from South Carolina. Vaughn, that broad report there from 3 different parts of the country, a lot of tea leaves there, but I'm not sure what we're reading exactly. What can Republicans or even Democrats pull from the victories and losses last night?
Yeah, Tom, I think as we look from state to state here over the course of this summer, there's a realization that voters in these two political parties are not monolithic here from state to state. I mean, look at this congressional district. Donald Trump wanted the candidate Katie Arrington. She won 45% of the vote, but the other candidate won 52% of the vote. That was among just voters, Republican voters, in one district. And then you go over to that Texas race there, where you're talking about a Republican winning in a place where Democrats have won for decades, in a district that is more than 80% Hispanic here. For as much as we can try to take away from one state and one primary, so much is still unknown heading into these November midterm elections.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking at that Texas race and pulling some data to see what happened there with Democrats. President Trump still has a few other contests he'll be watching pretty closely, right?
Yeah, we were talking about this purge campaign. Donald Trump is targeting 4 other Republican House members over the next 2 months, essentially backing other Republicans as part of primary challenges against them. Of course, the most notable among those 4 races is Liz Cheney in Wyoming 2 months from now. Tom?
All right, Vaughn Hilliard for us from the campaign trail. Vaughn, we appreciate it. We now have the latest on a key Senate race turning ugly. Georgia's Republican nominee, Herschel Walker, a former football legend who has the backing of former President Trump, now responding to reports of a child unknown to the public that is his. NBC's Maura Barrett has the details.
Herschel Walker is a legend in the state of Georgia, a college football star who went on to be an All-Pro in the NFL. Now, he's the Republican nominee running for the state Senate seat, backed by former President Trump.
So, Herschel, please say a few words. Thank you, Mayor.
Walker has been outspoken about his bond with his 22-year-old son.
I love this kid to death.
If you have a child with a woman, even if you have to leave that woman, you don't leave the child.
And the problem of fatherless households, especially in the African-American community. This from an interview in 2020.
I want to apologize to the African-American community because I know the fatherless home is a major, major problem.
Now, Walker coming forward to confirm he has a second son that he doesn't see. The admission after the Daily Beast reported Walker was sued for paternity and ordered to pay child support in 2014. The child, now 10 years old, has Walker's last name. In a statement to the Daily Beast, Walker's campaign manager said, quote, Herschel had a child years ago when he wasn't married. He supported the child and continues to do so. He's proud of his children. To suggest that Herschel is hiding the child because he hasn't used him in his political campaign is offensive and absurd. Walker is in a brutal battle with incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock. The insurgent Republicans campaign accusing Warnock of playing dirty politics, saying Raphael Warnock is currently engaged in both a nasty mudslinging campaign and a nasty custody dispute with his ex-wife. He is trying to hide it from voters by sealing the case and even tried to hide from authorities. This is a complete double standard. Warnock's communication director responded to that attack, telling the Daily Beast, Reverend Warnock is a devoted father who is proud to continue to co-parent his 2 children as he worked for the people of Georgia. The pressure and attacks from both campaigns reflecting the high stakes. The Senate at a 50-50 tie, and Georgia, a state where every vote counts.
I mean, this is a race that could once again determine control of the U.S. Senate.
Do you think this has an implication on this campaign? Could he take a hit because of it?
This is going to be something that dogs his campaign, but it's one of many things that dog his campaign. I mean, lies, campaign blunders, violent behavior, erratic behavior, exaggerations about his academic record, his business background, all sorts of issues. Democrats are trying to paint them together as and raises an issue of credibility for the candidate.
All right, Maura Barrett joins us now from Washington. Maura, how do we think this race is going to shake out as we head into November?
Well, Tom, you might remember Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock won their seats in an absolute upset last year, and so it's bound to get messy as we move forward. Warnock raising tens of millions of dollars in the last year, spending a lot of his money on attack ads. One of his premier ads attacking Walker directly on his repeated statements around COVID misinformation. And so the story like this just gives Warnock even more content for ads like that, and he's willing to spend the money to do so. Experts saying this is bound to be the most expensive midterm election in Georgia history. Tom?
All right, Maura, we thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, police ambushed 2 officers fatally shot while responding to a call at a California motel. What we're learning about both officers and the suspect. Plus that exclusive one-on-one with Amber Heard, her surprising revelation about her feelings for ex-husband Johnny Depp. And high-tech heist, the device discovered by police in Miami that allows thieves to clone your key fob and steal your car. How it works and how authorities are prepared to stop it. Also, what you can look out for. Stay with us. All right, we're back now with the NBC News exclusive interview with Amber Heard. Savannah Guthrie sitting down with the actress to discuss life after the trial and her current feelings towards ex-husband Johnny Depp. Take a look.
How do you see your future now?
I get to be a mom, like full time, you know, where I'm not having to juggle calls with lawyers.
One day you may want to tell your daughter about this or have to tell your daughter about everything that you've gone through. What would you want to say?
I think no matter what, it will mean something. I did the right thing. I did everything I could to stand up for myself and the truth.
Heard and Depp's volatile relationship lasted just 4 years. Depp confirming his engagement to me on Today in 2014.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
Yeah, very. She's a wonderful girl. She's sharp as a tack, you know, wonderful, you know, Southern belle, and sweet as can be, and very good for me, you know.
On the first day of the trial, you issued a statement, and part of the statement said, I still have love for Johnny.
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
After everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love him. I loved him with all my heart. And I tried the best I could to make a deeply broken relationship work. And I couldn't. I have no bad feelings or ill will towards him at all. I know that might be hard to understand, or it might be really easy to understand. If you've just ever loved anyone, it should be easy.
Amber Heard there, sitting down with Savannah Guthrie. And a programming note, you can see more of this interview during a special 2-hour Dateline on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, in Miami, a new look at a problem increasingly plaguing car owners. Thieves are using cutting-edge technology to steal the frequency from your key fob and not only break into the vehicle, but start it almost immediately. Sam Brock has a closer look at the crimes and what you can do to protect yourself.
Under the cover of night, 2 men stalk the side of this Miami home. One in a red hoodie holds a black box blinking green. Then in a matter of moments, steals the signal from a key fob inside, allowing his accomplice to use a second device. He pops open the door of this SUV, and the pair drives away with another man's car.
Once they unlocked my car, the one gentleman came in. Apparently he disconnected something, and then they started my car and drove right off with it.
This type of crime has been going on for years.
Brazen criminals caught on camera.
In 2016, NBC News reported on a string of similar car thefts crisscrossing the country from Seattle and California to New York. Now, though, a crescendo of stolen vehicles traced to this mystery device. Defined by AWS Insurance as a 2-part system, which works by capturing the code being transmitted from the keyless fob remote to the car and sends it to a side relay box. The device can then start the vehicle if there's a push-button start. It might look something like this, with one thief standing by the house and intercepting the signal from the key fob, which can be up to 30 feet away, then passing it off to thief number 2 and his side device, which tells the car it has an authentic signal. All of this in under 60 seconds. How are people getting their hands on this technology?
So in order to conduct these relay attacks, you need a piece of technology that's very readily available. You could buy it online. You could buy it on Amazon. They have legitimate purposes other than stealing cars.
The technique can be deployed at shopping malls by following a person with a key or from right outside your home, showcasing how vulnerable we are to this high-tech attack.
We're certainly seeing an increase across the entire nation of criminals figuring out how to exploit keyless fobs in order to steal cars.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now live from Miami. So, Sam, what's the advice law enforcement has to stop these thefts from happening? I mean, what should you do with your key?
It's a lot simpler, Tom, than you might think. For about $6 at Home Depot, you can buy something like this, a black box. They sell pouches as well, $6 to $12. You stick the fob inside here. It blocks the signal that the fob emits. Experts, Tom, even say you can use tin cans. That would also disrupt that signal. The key is do not leave your key, no pun intended, at the front of the house, right by where the car is, because then it's in closer proximity. That would raise the risk of you being susceptible to something like this. And it's also notable, Tom, that some car companies like Audi, BMW, and Mercedes have already tweaked the formula a little bit so that their fobs stop emitting signals when the fob isn't moving. Tech experts say all car manufacturers should be doing just that. Tom,
all right, Sam Brock with some great tips for us. Sam, we appreciate it. When we come back to the rescue, the moment a deputy is attacked inside an Oklahoma jail. Take a close look there. You can see her being choked. Other inmates then rushing to save her. The whole thing captured on camera. The new video next. All right, now to Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the 2 California officers shot and killed at a California motel. Late today, the department identifying those El Monte officers as Joseph Santana and Michael Paredes. The 2 were responding to reports of a possible stabbing when the gunman opened fire. We're also learning the suspect, who was also killed in the shooting, was on probation for an illegal gun charge. Next to a group of inmates saving a guard at an Oklahoma jail. New surveillance video shows the moment an inmate walks behind the deputy and wraps a pillowcase around her neck. The deputy managing to call for help when a group of other inmates rushed to her aid and freed her from the woman's grip. Authorities say the inmate also had a makeshift weapon in her hand at the time. She's now facing upgraded charges. The Department of Justice has announced hate crime charges against the suspect in the Buffalo supermarket mass shooting. The 18-year-old is now facing 26 federal counts of hate crimes and firearms offenses. The charges carry a possible death sentence. He is accused of killing 10 black people at a top supermarket last month. Attorney General Merrick Garland saying today that fighting hate crimes is the moral and legal obligation of the DOJ. And air and sea crews rescuing a boater off the coast of New York City. Take a look. Aerial footage shows an NYPD helicopter lowering a rescue basket to two police divers who were already in the water. The officers reaching a 45-year-old man who was thrown overboard after his boat capsized. Crews then hoisted him to safety. He was evaluated by EMS but was not hurt. Next tonight, those rising interest rates will send mortgages even higher in coming weeks, pushing some people to buy now or risk being priced out. Jolene Kent has more.
I'm so glad that we found these.
Sky Callahan was in a rush.
So financially, overall, it's been a little bit of a struggle. We had to either buy before the rates went up or completely wait.
With a growing family, she needed a bigger house. Calculating what the New Jersey family could afford depended on interest rates, which have surged. A 30-year fixed-rate mortgage climbing from 3.3% at the start of this year to 6.22% now. Home prices have been soaring, too. Median sale prices have skyrocketed 16% in the past year. The combination can mean as much as a $1,000 increase in monthly payments for families like the Callahans, a trend pushing some to act in a hurry.
When we saw that the rates were going up due to inflation, that's when we really got into gear and decided okay, we need to make a move now because it's only going to get worse.
That feeling Callahan was getting is called inflationary psychology, and many Americans say they've got it too, beyond the housing market. Nearly 90% of Americans are concerned about inflation, and more than a third of shoppers said they have purchased something recently for fear that the price would continue to rise.
It's our rationale that we need to stockpile things before the price increases, which just creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. As we spend more, we feel like we have less money. We blame it on inflation when maybe it's actually our psychology.
Inflationary psychology can impact the way we spend money on everything from houses to swimsuits to baby formula, triggering even more stress and anxiety.
I feel pressured to buy now as opposed to waiting a few months because who knows what the prices are going to be then.
If you're going after a big ticket item that you really need, say a house, should you be approaching this in a certain way?
Yeah, honestly, we won't see a dramatic drop in prices after inflation stabilizes. Maybe it's time to say, instead of buying this year, maybe I can rent somewhere affordable and wait till I have more savings to buy those big ticket items.
Big ticket items whose costs seem to just keep going up. Jolene Kent, NBC News.
All right, we thank Joe for that. Now to cryptocurrency, also wreaking havoc for investors. It's been a week of deep losses. The world's largest cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, hitting lows not seen since 2020, adding fuel to this fire. One of the largest players in crypto lending announced it's stopping all withdrawals. NBC's George Solis has more.
Crypto companies called on celebrities to help sell the fortune of the future.
Fortune favors the brave.
But if you listen to Matt Damon and invested, say, $1,000 that day the ad came out last October, you'd have about $360 left today, losing almost 2/3 of your money. The ongoing crypto crash mirrors how stocks are cratering too, but more sharply as the Fed raises interest rates to battle soaring inflation.
What is happening with the crypto market right now?
The broad picture right now is that you have the Federal Reserve hiking interest rates today, and there is a big fear at the moment as to what that means for markets of all stripes, and crypto is definitely one of them.
An estimated $200 billion has been wiped from the broader crypto market just since last Friday. This week, Celsius, a company that in essence works as a bank for crypto, halted withdrawals and transfers, citing extreme market conditions in a memo to its 1.7 million clients, sparking fears the company could fold.
To be honest, there's just kind of questions about the transparency of Celsius, because nobody knows when they're going to let up on this at the moment.
The company has reportedly lent out around $8 billion to clients, but crypto expert and founder of Custodia Bank, Caitlin Long, says long-term investors can ride out the rough seas, even if the get-rich-quick days are over for now.
What does this mean for the everyday consumer, if anything at all?
It's so small at this point, it doesn't mean much. I would encourage everyone to watch it because the resilience after these crashes is what tends to bring folks in. And especially if you have a long-term time horizon, it can be a good time to dig in.
So is crypto here to stay?
Oh, definitely crypto's here to stay.
But some jobs aren't. Crypto exchange Coinbase announced it plans to lay off about 18% of the company's workforce, putting out some 1,100 employees, citing fears of an economic recession that could lead to a crypto winter. No laughing matter, as jokes about crypto being pegged a sure thing take on different meanings.
It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
don't think so.
All right, George Solis joins us now live from Los Angeles. So, George, what are experts saying about the impact these crashes are having on the economy? You know, so many people invested in cryptocurrency. Could it trigger a broader economic slowdown?
Yeah, Tom, and so hundreds of billions of dollars of value are invested in crypto, and hard to see that not having any impact. And according to an NBC News poll, 1 in 5 Americans has owned any kind of crypto, which is why there's so much debate about its impact on the global economy. Tom?
Okay, George, we thank you for that. Coming up, humanitarian aid attack. Famed chef Jose Andres confirming one of his food trains in eastern Ukraine, look at that, was hit with a missile. A look at the damage as a food shortage in the country worsens. Stay with us. We are back now with Top Stories Global Watch and an update in the case of a missing British journalist and his local expert in the Amazon. Brazil's justice minister today confirming remains have been found in the search for journalist Dom Phillips and his guide. Authorities will now work to identify the remains. It comes as new video shows one suspect taken into custody. Police have arrested 2 brothers in connection to the disappearances. World-renowned chef Jose Andres says one of his food trains in eastern Ukraine was hit by a Russian missile. World Central Kitchen sharing videos of the damage on Twitter. No one was hurt, luckily, but the organization says it lost an entire car full of food. This as Ukraine is facing a severe humanitarian crisis as a massive shortage of food affects civilians all across the country. And a 10-year-old boy rescued after spending nearly 5 days trapped in a well in India. Take a look. The boy, who is both deaf and mute, accidentally fell down the 60-foot well after his father left the structure uncovered. More than 500 rescue workers helped dig him out. The child was taken to the hospital and is expected to be okay. All right, when we come back, a man, a school, and a mustache. Trust me when I tell you this is a story you won't want to miss. We'll be right back. Finally tonight, saying goodbye with style. One Connecticut elementary school's creative idea on how to send off their favorite custodian.
When it comes to faculty and staff at West Vine Street Elementary, it's tough to top head custodian Angelo Guido.
Angelo takes great pride in this school. I think he treats it like his home.
Really nice, and he's just really cool.
Guido not only loves the school, he loves the job.
This type of work, it fits me. I love kids. I love to clean.
But forget that kindness. Throw out the incredible work ethic. His stash is where it's at.
Mr. Guido is known for that awesome mustache.
In fact, you can see the evolution over 18 stash-filled years of service. So when Mr. Guido announced he was retiring this year, the school decided to surprise him on his last day.
I have my little friends, kids. If somebody will say something, no, nobody said a thing.
The entire school lining the hallways wearing mustaches and waving Italian flags.
The students made cards and posters. We decided that we would surprise him.
It's emotional, you know, you've been with him for a long time.
Guido so touched knowing he was not just the school's janitor, but behind that mustache, he was a true caretaker.
It meant a lot to me, and I always, in a way, I want to make a difference in someone's life, no matter how small it is. So I take pride in that.
And we wish a happy retirement to Mr. Guido. We also want to thank our Providence, Rhode Island station, WJAR, for their help with that story. We thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.